Now, about 2 years ago, we told you about a little church in the southern Oregon coast town of Brookings that got in trouble for feeding the homeless too often. Now, the federal government is getting involved. But before we get to that, let's give you a refresher on the issue. St. Timothy's Episcopal Church in Brookings, down in Curry County, has been feeding people from their church property for about 14 years. They say city leaders, including the city's longtime former mayor, even used to help out with feeding people. But in 2020, the church expanded its service to feed people up to 6 days a week because other nonprofits weren't able to keep up with the skyrocketing need during the early days of the pandemic. But people in the neighborhood got upset that so many homeless people were around all the time. They were concerned about public health and safety, so they went to the city to try and force the church to stop. In October 2021, the city unanimously passed a new zoning ordinance limiting churches to only feed people 2 days a week. Reverend Bernie Lindley told us he's refusing to comply with the ordinance and that feeding the poor is imperative to the way he practices his religion.
When we feed people, this isn't like a hobby for us. This is a deeply held religious belief. We believe fervently that we need to feed people, that what we do for the people who are on the margins is what we do for Christ himself. And so this isn't something we take lightly. This is something that is cornerstone to who we are as Christians. This is how we understand our relationship to Christ. So there is no doubt that this is how we practice our religion.
The Reverend tells us that housing prices started skyrocketing in Brookings before the pandemic, and so did the number of homeless people. According to the Curry Pilot newspaper in Brookings, a survey from 2021 showed about 200 homeless people at the time. There are about 6,000 people living in Brookings altogether. The survey showed about 60% of the homeless people were longtime residents of the city.
Our society needs to recognize that these are just people that are struggling, trying to get by as best they can. And instead of assuming the worst about them or scapegoating and blaming them for whatever, assuming that if there's violence or if there's thievery, that it must be the homeless person who did it. Instead, we have to recognize that they're just people trying to get by as best they can. And the more services, the more care we can offer to them, the less likely they are going to need to be desperate and perhaps be driven to do desperate things. So we really want to honor people and meet them where they are. And one of the basic ways for us to do that is to make sure they're fed.
In February 2020, Reverend Lindley and St. Timothy's sued the city, saying the 2-day-a-week ordinance unfairly prevented them from practicing their religion. The Oregonian reports that the city's argument is this: giving out food does not count as a religious practice. But last week, the U.S. Department of Justice filed paperwork in the case agreeing with the church. They told the U.S. District Court for Oregon that they should rule against the city, saying many churches and faith-based organizations across the country are on the front lines serving the critical needs of people experiencing hunger and homelessness. Discriminatory zoning restrictions that burden and limit religious organizations' use of their land violate federal anti-discrimination laws. We reached out to the city to get their side for ourselves. They didn't respond. But Reverend Lindley says he's gotten support from people across the country, and he's happy to have the DOJ's support also.
Really, it's kind of humbling if you think about it. Here we are in the most remote corner. Well, I don't know about the most remote corner, but in the far southwest Netherland of Oregon, and there are people who care that we are not, that our religious freedoms are not trampled on.
So what now? The case is now in the hands of the federal district court in Oregon, and we'll keep you posted on how it all plays out.